The moment I signed the papers for my first home, I felt like I'd finally won a battle I had been fighting my whole life. My hands were trembling slightly as I clutched the folder to my chest, standing in the warm sunlight outside the realtor's office. It wasn't just a house, it was proof. Proof that I was enough, even if my parents never thought so. I slid into my car and before I could even turn on the engine, my phone rang. It was my mom. I smiled, naively hoping she had some motherly instinct that told her this was a big day for me. "Hey, Mom," I said, still glowing. She didn't waste a second. "So, you're putting the house in your brother's name, right?" "I mean, he's the man of the house." I didn't understand at first. I blinked. "What?" "You know, it makes sense. If anything ever happens, he should be the one in charge of the property. He's family. And you're not married yet. It's just smart." My stomach dropped. The smile vanished. My whole body froze. I waited for the punchline, for her to laugh and say, "Just kidding, honey, congratulations." But no. She was dead serious. "I bought this house, for me," I finally managed to say. She scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. He's your brother. He'll take care of it. You girls come and go, but your brother, he'll be the one holding the family together one day." It wasn't the first time she had said something like that. But somehow, this one broke something in me. I ended the call quietly. No shouting. No begging her to see me. Just silence. I sat in the driver's seat for a long while. The joy I had felt just minutes ago was leaking out of me like a balloon with a slow puncture. I stared at the signed documents and thought about every sacrifice I had made to get to this moment. I had worked through college, skipped vacations, lived in a tiny apartment for years just to save enough. While my brother, Derek, dropped out of 2 programs, took gap years that never ended, and was still living at home like a prince. And yet, they still thought he deserved it more. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, wet eyes, trembling lips, and made a quiet vow right then and there. I'm done. This house would not bear my brother's name. It would carry mine. Not because I wanted to spite them, but because I needed at least one thing in my life that wasn't stolen by the lie that only sons matter. And for once, I wasn't going to apologize for wanting more. I didn't tell anyone about the house for a week. Not my parents. Not Derek. Not even my best friend, Amanda. It felt like a secret treasure, mine alone, untouched by judgment or manipulation. But peace never lasts long in families like mine. That Saturday, I made the mistake of attending my cousin's birthday cookout. Everyone was there, my parents, Derek, our extended family, and like always, the questions came flying before I could even take a seat. "So, Jenna, still renting that shoebox apartment? Any marriage plans on the horizon? You know Derek's got a new project coming up, your dad's investing." And just like that, my accomplishments faded into the background like faint chalk on a rainy sidewalk. I smiled politely, chewed my food, and kept my secret locked tight. But my mom noticed something. Moms always do. After dessert, she cornered me in the kitchen. "You've been quiet today. You hiding something?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. And maybe I wanted her to be proud. Maybe I hoped she'd hug me and say, "I always knew you'd make it." So I told her. I bought a house. Her expression shifted instantly, from curiosity to calculation. "Really? Wow. Where?" I gave her the neighborhood name and watched her mentally estimate the property value. She nodded slowly. "That's nice. So when are you transferring it to Derek's name?" I flinched like she had slapped me. "Mom, no." "Why would I? You know it makes sense. He'll get married soon, start a family. You don't even know if you'll stay here. He's the man. This is just logic." It wasn't logic. It was the same script they had recited my whole life. Derek was the man of the house. Derek needed space. Derek had potential. While I was the backup plan. The second-class citizen with a smile painted on. I walked out of the kitchen without saying another word. But of course, the damage was done. By Monday, Derek called. Mom told me you bought a house. Congrats. She said you're putting it under my name? I could barely contain my disbelief. No, Derek. I'm not. He laughed, like I had told him a joke. Don't be like that. You know Mom's right. It's smart, taxes, inheritance, future security. Future mine, I said sharply. This is the first thing I've ever done just for me. There was a pause. Then the switch flipped in his voice. You've always been selfish. You act like you're so oppressed when you've had every opportunity. But fine, Jenna. Keep your little house. Just don't come crying when you screw it all up. That conversation broke something permanent. I realized no matter how hard I worked, no matter what I achieved, I'd always be seen as lesser. I was only valuable when I was giving something up, my time, my energy, my home. I sat in my new empty living room that night, the floor echoing under me. No furniture yet. Just a single lamp and the overwhelming silence of independence. And for the first time, I let myself cry. Not because I was weak, but because I finally knew the battle I had to fight wasn't just about a house. It was about taking back the worth they never gave me. Section 2 complete, 600 words white heavy checkmark. I didn't sleep that night. My house, my first home, felt more like a battleground than a dream. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard their voices echoing. She's always been difficult. Derek is the real future of this family. She doesn't understand sacrifice. But the truth was, I understood sacrifice more than any of them ever would. Growing up, I watched Derek get everything first. The better room. The new shoes. The car when he turned 16. My birthday gifts were always thoughtful, his were always expensive. My mother used to say, "You don't need much, Jenna. You're strong. You'll figure it out." But being strong all the time is exhausting. I remembered one winter when I was 14. I wanted to join the school choir trip, but it cost $200. My parents said no, we couldn't afford extra stuff. The same week, Derek got tickets to a basketball game, a jersey, and new shoes to match. I never said anything. I smiled and stayed home while the choir performed in Nashville. These weren't just moments, they were layers of pain that hardened into silence over the years. And now, when I had finally carved out something for me, they wanted it stripped away again. Like I was just a placeholder until Derek needed more room. The next morning, Amanda came over with coffee. She knew something was off just by looking at me. "Spill," she said, handing me the cup. I told her everything. The cookout. The conversation with my mom. Derek's call. Her jaw clenched. "Jenna, they've been gaslighting you for years. You've always given, and they've only taken. You finally have something of your own. Don't you dare give it up." I nodded, wiping a tear before it fell. But a storm was building inside me. I started thinking about all the times I bent over backward for my family. All the times I gave up plans to babysit my cousins because Derek had something important. All the times I stayed quiet during dinners when my achievements were ignored and his were celebrated like the Super Bowl. And yet, I was still expected to give my house, my name, my peace. It wasn't just a house. It was my boundary line. The first one I'd drawn in years. And they wanted me to erase it for the sake of family? No. That day, I began going through my old journals. I found pages filled with heartbreak, loneliness, quiet victories, and invisible strength. I found a letter I wrote to myself after graduating college, when my parents barely showed up because Derek had a more important commitment. "You did this," the letter said. "No one else." I reread it 3 times, then taped it to the back of my front door. A silent reminder to never doubt my worth again. I wasn't going to be the background character in my own life anymore. And I definitely wasn't going to hand over my future just because my brother was born with a title they invented, man of the house. No more guilt. No more second guessing. From that moment on, I decided this wouldn't just be a battle for a deed. It would be a battle for respect. And I was ready to fight. The next week, I stopped answering their calls. Not out of spite, but clarity. I needed space. Space to think, plan, and finally take control of my life without second-guessing myself every step of the way. That meant no more emotional ambushes from my mom, no guilt-laced texts from dad, and definitely no fake concern from Derek. Instead, I used that time to reframe my reality. I went to the county records office and filed paperwork to officially secure my home deed. I made sure everything was legally locked in, my name, my ownership, my terms. I wasn't taking any chances. I even had my friend's husband, a real estate attorney, review every word. I also began keeping a record of every conversation I had with my parents about the house, just in case things got uglier. Trust me, with my family, that wasn't a far-fetched assumption. One night, as I was going through old photos in the attic, I stumbled on a box labeled Jenna's Future. It was something I'd put together when I was 18. Inside were drawings of my dream home, a journal, and even a vision board made of magazine cutouts. On one page, in bright red letters, I'd written, "A home no one can take from me." I smiled. That girl, naive and hopeful, was still inside me. But now, she was backed by real strength and legal knowledge. That's when the idea hit me. Instead of avoiding the next family dinner like I'd planned, I RSVP'd yes. I would show up. Not to argue. Not to explain. But to let them know, without saying a word, that I wasn't the Jenna they used to manipulate anymore. So I put on a blazer, wore my hair back, and walked in that house like I owned the room. Because for once, I actually owned something. And I wasn't about to hide it. The minute I stepped through the door, I could feel the tension shift. Derek gave a half-smile. "Did you think about what we said?" My mother looked at me like she was still waiting for me to fold. But I just pulled out a small envelope, placed it on the table, and said, "I've secured the deed to the house. It's final, legal, and untouchable. Just wanted to share the good news." Their faces dropped. For once, they were speechless. No drama. No fake smiles. Just stunned silence. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to justify. I let the facts speak louder than my pain ever had. That night, I walked out of their home not as a daughter seeking approval, but as a woman who finally knew her worth. And this time, I had the paperwork to back it up. A week later, it happened. I got the call from my mom. Her voice was softer this time, no more judgment, no more pressure. "Jenna," she began, "we need to talk." I couldn't help but roll my eyes. This wasn't a heart-to-heart. This was damage control. "Yeah," I answered, trying to keep my tone neutral. I just want to say I'm sorry. We never meant for things to get this way," she said, her voice wavering. I knew better than to trust it. The same woman who'd gaslit me for years into believing that I wasn't good enough was now asking for a reconciliation. But the most surprising part of the conversation wasn't the apology, it was the guilt in her voice. She was uncomfortable, out of her depth, and it showed. She thought I would cave, that I would break down and give in to their manipulations again. But I didn't. Instead, I said something that completely shifted the entire dynamic. "You're sorry? Mom, that's cute. But sorry isn't going to fix the mess you created. And it's certainly not going to change the fact that I'm done playing nice." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "I'm sorry." "What?" she asked, clearly shocked by my response. "I'm done. I'm done letting you guilt-trip me. I'm done letting you and Dad run my life. I'm done letting you both use Derek as the golden child while I'm over here working my ass off to make something of myself." There it was. I finally said the words I'd been holding back for so long. You don't get to tell me how to live anymore. And you sure as hell don't get to demand that I hand over everything I've worked so hard for. Her voice cracked as she whispered, but it's family. We thought we were helping you. I laughed. It wasn't a laugh of joy, it was a laugh of liberation. Helping me? By controlling me? By constantly telling me what I owe to others? No. That's not helping. That's manipulation. I let the words sink in. And then, in the calmest voice I could muster, I added, and just so we're clear, I'm not putting Derek's name on the deed. The house is mine. You'll never get that from me. A beat of silence. Jenna, please, she said, almost pleading now. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean any of it. Mom, you didn't mean any of it? Funny, I remember you and Dad telling me, for years, that Derek deserved more because he was the man of the house. Remember that? You didn't mean any of that? Another silence, and then the heavy realization set in for her. You didn't think I would actually stand up for myself, did you? You thought I'd just roll over, let you take control, and let Derek have everything handed to him on a silver platter. But not anymore, Mom. Not anymore. I hung up the phone before she could say anything else. And as I sat there, with the weight of the call heavy in my hands, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation. I had my own. And that, for once, was enough. This was it. The moment I had worked for, the moment that everything had been building towards. After all the struggle, the years of feeling overlooked and undervalued, I was finally free. But more importantly, I had become the person I was always meant to be. It had been 6 months since that fateful phone call with my mother. In that time, I had made sure to build my life around my own rules, not theirs. The house was mine, and I'd spent countless hours turning it into a home, a true reflection of who I was. I didn't need anyone's approval to enjoy it. I didn't need their praise to feel successful. But life had a funny way of throwing curveballs, and just when I thought things couldn't get any better, I got the news that changed everything. I had been invited to an exclusive gathering of successful entrepreneurs in the city, a big deal for someone in my line of work. The list of invitees included some of the top influencers and business minds in the country, and it was clear that my achievements had finally gained recognition. I had worked for this moment, and now it was time to shine. I walked into the venue with my head held high, a confident smile on my face. It felt so different from the days when I used to shrink under the weight of everyone else's expectations. There was a certain power in owning your own story, something that couldn't be taken away by anyone, no matter how much they tried. As I stepped into the hall, I saw my parents sitting at a table with some familiar faces. My mom's eyes met mine, and for a second, I could see the guilt flash across her face. She knew I had made it, she knew I was no longer the person she could control. I walked past them without a word, choosing instead to mingle with the people who recognized me for who I truly was. And that's when it hit me, this was the success I had been working toward. Not just financial freedom, but emotional freedom. Freedom from the expectations, the judgment, and the toxic need to please everyone around me. I wasn't just a person with a house anymore, I was someone who had built an empire on their own terms. A true success story, not because of what I had, but because of how I had gotten there. Later that evening, as the crowd gathered for speeches, I received an unexpected text. It was from Derek. Congrats on everything, Jenna. I'm proud of you. I hope one day we can talk. I didn't know how to respond at first. Derek had been my parents' golden boy, the one who always got everything you wanted. But as I stood there in the midst of a room full of people who truly admired me, I realized something. I didn't need his validation. I had created my own success, and that was enough. I smiled, then put my phone down. This was my moment. The room was buzzing with excitement, and I felt a sense of belonging that I'd never known before. For once, I wasn't just the daughter in the background. I was the one people were paying attention to. I was free. And as I stood on stage later that evening, accepting an award for my work, I saw my parents in the back of the room. My mother's eyes were filled with tears, but this time, they weren't tears of manipulation. They were tears of pride. She had finally realized the truth. This was my journey, and it always had been. And though it took time for her to see it, I knew one thing for sure: I had earned this. And no one, not even her, could take it away from me. As the night carried on, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace wash over me. The award in my hand was proof of the struggles I had overcome, but it wasn't the physical recognition that meant the most, it was the feeling of liberation that came with it. It wasn't just the house. It wasn't just the business. It was the fact that I had finally, truly, outgrown the shackles my family had placed around me. I had proven that I was worthy of success, not because they said I was, but because I had earned it on my own. But as I glanced around the room, a new wave of realization hit me. Derek hadn't been at the event. That wasn't like him. He always showed up to claim his rightful place in the spotlight, like he always did. I let it go for the moment. The evening was too special to ruin with thoughts of him. But as the event wrapped up and I made my way back to my car, I noticed a familiar figure in the parking lot. My heart skipped a beat as I saw Derek standing by his car, waiting for me. "Jenna," he called, his voice sounding strangely subdued. "Can we talk?" I stopped in my tracks. A small part of me had been expecting this. But I wasn't the same person who would have cowered in front of him just a few years ago. I was stronger now, and I wasn't about to let him manipulate me again. "What is it, Derek?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "I just wanted to apologize. For everything." He shifted nervously on his feet. "For how I treated you, for everything that happened with the house. I was wrong." His words took me by surprise, but I quickly composed myself. I had been expecting him to make some sort of excuse, not a genuine apology. But now, I had the upper hand. This was the moment where I could let karma take its course. "You're right, Derek. You were wrong," I said, my voice cool. "But I've learned something in the past few years." I watched as his eyes flickered, sensing the shift in my tone. "What do you mean?" "I've learned that it's not just about being right or wrong. It's about actions," I said, my gaze fixed on him. "And your actions over the years, they spoke louder than anything you ever said. You never saw me. Never respected me." I could see the guilt start to creep in, but I wasn't done yet. "I used to beg for your approval. I used to think that if I just worked hard enough, maybe, just maybe, you'd see me as worthy. But I've learned that I don't need your approval. I don't need anyone's approval," I continued, my voice gaining strength with every word. "And you know what else I've learned?" I asked, taking a step closer to him, watching the shock register on his face. "I've learned that when people like you try to take everything from me, I don't just let it slide. I make sure you understand the consequences of your actions." I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope. I held it out to him with a small, but knowing smile. "This," I said, "is the final bill for everything you tried to take from me. The house, the years of my life, the emotional labor, you owe for it all. And just like I promised, it's in your name now." His face paled as he took the envelope. The realization dawned on him like a ton of bricks. He hadn't expected this, he hadn't expected me to take such a stand, to take back control. But I had. "I'm done, Derek," I said quietly, turning to walk away. "You can keep the bill. It's the least you deserve." I could hear him scrambling behind me, trying to call after me, but I didn't turn back. I didn't need to. The damage had been done, and the satisfaction was mine to enjoy. As I drove away from the event, I felt a sense of power that I had never known before. Not only had I gotten what I wanted, but I had made sure Derek understood the true weight of his actions. And for the first time in a long time, I was free. As I drove back home that night, the weight of the evening's events finally began to settle. The city lights blurred past me as I processed what had just happened. I'd taken a stand. I'd shown Derek, and everyone else, what it meant to cross the line with me. For once, I felt completely in control, and it was an exhilarating feeling. The phone buzzed in my hand, but I didn't need to look at it. It was my mom, probably calling to check on how the event had gone. But I wasn't ready to hear her apology or her excuses. She had never been on my side, not really. And her attempts to make things right now felt hollow. Instead, I ignored the call, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty about it. I wasn't the same girl who used to beg for approval or validation from my family. I had learned to stop seeking their approval because I didn't need it anymore. The recognition from my peers, from my friends, and from people who truly valued me, that's what mattered now. Arriving at my new house, I parked in the driveway and took a deep breath, letting the fresh air fill my lungs. I had worked so hard for this moment. The house was mine, and it was everything I had ever dreamed of. Every inch of the space spoke of my resilience and determination. It wasn't just the brick and mortar, it was the culmination of years of fighting for what I deserved. I walked inside, letting the silence wrap around me. It felt like home, real home. Not the one my parents had always tried to force me into, not the one where I was expected to play the role of the good daughter, always second to Derek. This house was mine, built from the ground up, and it was a symbol of my independence. That night, I sat down on the couch and took a long look around. The soft glow of the lights in the living room illuminated the space, and I smiled. My heart felt light, and my mind was at ease. For the first time in a long time, there were no lingering doubts or regrets. This was my victory. This was the life I had built on my own terms. The next morning, as the sun rose, I walked out into the garden. I stood there, feeling the warm sunlight on my face, and I couldn't help but think about everything that had brought me to this point. All the struggles, the betrayals, the moments when I had doubted myself, all of them had led me to this peaceful moment. And then, for the first time in forever, I allowed myself to feel grateful. Not for what my family had done for me, because, honestly, they hadn't done much, but for what I had done for myself. I had taken control of my own destiny, and no one could take that away from me. As I sat on the porch, I finally answered the call from my mom. Her voice trembled as she asked if we could talk, but I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm. I was strong. I wasn't the little girl who had to fight for scraps of attention anymore. "I'm doing great, Mom," I said. "And I think it's time we both start living our own lives. I'm done with the past." Her silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't ready for this conversation, and that was okay. For once, I wasn't waiting for her to catch up. I was moving forward, and nothing could hold me back. The past had tried to define me. It had tried to break me, to make me feel small. But it had failed. Because I was stronger than it all. And now, with my home, my career, and my freedom, I was ready to take on the world. As the sun set that evening, I knew that this was just the beginning. The future was mine to shape, and nothing, no one, would ever tell me otherwise.